Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Grammy online entry process explained. My name is Michael Almanza. I am part of the awards team here at the Recording Academy. Today, we'll be walking through the Grammy Awards online entry process, also known as OEP. Whether you're a seasoned OEP pro or you're going to make entries for the first time, this walkthrough will help you prepare making your entry process as smooth as possible, and will help us make sure that every single submission gets the attention it deserves. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to begin with a brief slideshow explaining the OEP basics. What is it? Who can enter? When can you enter? And most importantly, how to make entries. We will then jump into a live demo of the OEP platform, where I will show you how to navigate the site and take best advantage of the available resources. Then we'll make some entries. We will conclude discussing how to properly finalize your entries, as well as what you want to be thinking about after you've completed the entry process. How can you make sure we've received your entries, and what comes next? Also part of the awards team and ready to answer your questions, joining us are Shelly Marie and Ralph Olivares. Really do take advantage of this forum as we go. We have many attendees today, so please check the ongoing list to see if your question has already been answered. We understand that for so many of you, these entries are the culmination of months and years of hard work. The Academy treats each entry with this in mind. So, from the awards department to all of you, thank you for taking some time out of your day to help better understand the Grammy entry process. The basics. Here we go. What is the online entry process? It's the process by which recordings are submitted for Grammy consideration, and it's the only process by which recordings are submitted for Grammy consideration. There is no other process for this. The 64th Grammy Awards eligibility year is September 1st, 2020 through September 30th, 2021. Now, for those of you who have made entries before, just take special note that this is a 13-month eligibility year. A couple basic guidelines. Recordings need to be commercially released, nationally distributed, and available from any date within the eligibility period through at least the date of the current year's voting deadline, also known as the final ballot. And for the 64th Grammy Awards, that date is January 5th, 2022. And what I mean by that is your recording's got, from the day it's released, it's got to be commercially available to our voting, to the general public through at least January 5th, 2022. And any entry made during the OEP process is just that. It's an entry, not a nomination. You will definitely know if your recording gets nominated. Who can make entries? There's two ways, either as a member or as a registered media company. First, we're going to cover members. So any current voting and professional members in good standing, for this year, it's as of July 6th, 2021, for first round access, can make entries. Now, entries can be made on behalf of another member or a non-member. And what I mean by this is that if you're a member and you have an artist, a producer, an engineer, someone that wants to get their recording entered, but they themselves are not members, you can make the entry on their behalf. Entries are made by logging into your Grammy.com member account. And that's really the biggest difference between members and media companies, is the way you get to the entry site. There's a separate registration process for media companies, and we're going to go over that next. So media companies, on the other hand, they have to meet our criteria of what a media company is, and you can see that in the smaller print there. Go ahead and read that at your convenience. And just so everyone knows, we will make this presentation available. The PowerPoint will be available following this webinar. And we will also be making this recording of the webinar available in the coming days. So for media companies, there's a separate registration process. A media company every year will pay $120 to register, and during the window of July 6th through August 24th will register. They'll go to Grammy.com, register, fill out some information, and complete the registration. On our end, we have a few folks on our team that go through every single registration to verify that they meet our definition. If so, that media company is given access to make entries. When can I make entries? Now, this by far is what you want to memorize. This is what you want to print, put it in every room of your house, do what you have to do. This is key. So we have 2 rounds. The first round, which opened yesterday at 9 a.m., closes Thursday, July 29th at 6 p.m. Pacific time. Any times that you see listed here or that I reference are always going to be Pacific time. Then we have a final round. Opens August 17th, 9 a.m., closes August 31st, 6 p.m. Pacific time. And we get a lot of questions. What's the difference? Why can I make entries in either one? Well, the answer is pretty much administrative, actually. We get over 20,000 entries a year. Last year, I believe we hit just above 22,000 individual entries. We have a small but mighty team in this company, our awards department. They are able to get through a lot of entries. So what we ask of you is to get them in as soon as possible. So that's why we say that first round, what the round we're in right now, is when you want to enter most of your recordings. So we give a little guidance there. So any entries that has a release date of between September 1st, 2020 and July 31st, 2021, get those in this first round. It really does allow us and our team the time necessary to verify and make sure we have all the information we need. And the final round, you can see it as for our August and September 2021 releases. Even if you have a release September 30th, 2021, the absolute last day of our eligibility year, you're going to want to enter that in our final round. So that's the difference between the 2 rounds. And at this time, I actually want to throw it over to Ralph and Shelley to see if they're seeing any questions that we want to address.
All right, hi. Okay, let's see if we have some questions that we're getting. Some frequent questions we're seeing are, can I submit in multiple categories, or can I submit multiple singles or tracks from an album? And the answer is yes. You can submit in as many categories as you want, and you can submit as many tracks from an album as you would want. However, something to keep in mind is that we do flag what is considered excessive entries, and at which point you would be reached out to by a member of the team to check in with you and say, hi, let's work on this. Make sure also that you're not competing with yourself. Ralph, you've got one?
Yeah, I have one. Are there any benefits to submitting in the first round versus final round? There's no benefits. The first round is specifically for the releases within the first 11 months of our eligibility period, which is the dates is September 1st, 2020 to July 31st, 2021. So first round is for first 11 months. The final round is for August 1st through September 30th. We get a bunch of questions in, folks, so we're just trying to decide.
I see here that if a pro or voting member submits for someone who is not a member, does the person who is not a member receive any kind of confirmation email? That answer is no. So we contact only the enterer, not the artist or not the anybody else involved in the work. So for all things that we need to communicate with you about regarding qualifications, regarding any questions we have, that will go to the enterer of the track or album themselves.
One is, what does commercially released mean specifically? It just means that we have to see it available for sale via third-party website, or it could be available for screening. We have several, there's quite a bit of screening platforms that we accept. Here's another one. Do you need to be on a media company in order to enter the recordings? You need to be either a registered media company or an active member. Or if you know somebody who falls within those 2 groups, they can submit it for you.
Okay, I've got one more for you, Mikey. Someone's asking if the Academy whittles down the first list before the voting process begins. No, we do not. all the awards team does is we qualify every single entry just to make sure that it is eligible, that it's released within our eligibility period, that it meets all of the requirements for that category. And then everything that is qualified is on the first ballot. So you see every entry that meets our requirements. We do not do any quality judgments before the first ballot goes out.
Another one is the recordings that were distributed. Do recordings that were distributed only digitally qualify? Definitely. We do accept recordings that are exclusively released on DSPs. So you're fine on that. You don't need to have a physical product.
All right, Mikey, back to you.
All right, so now you know when. You've committed that screen to memory, and now you say where. So we're gonna go to where do I make entries? So media company or member, you're gonna start at Grammy.com. The homepage of Grammy.com, either one, you're gonna start there. So you can see the two arrows, right? The red arrows. If you're a member, you're gonna click that drop-down menu on the left side, and it's gonna open up this menu, and you're gonna see a login button. That's how you log into your Grammy.com member account. And I know a lot of you are very familiar with that. But for those part of our new class or anyone that's fairly new that's never made entries, that's where you go to get into your member account. Media companies, on the other hand, are going to be using that top bar, that gold bar, which says breaking news. There's a link there that'll take you to a page that media companies will use to get to the entry site. And just to go dive into the member site a little more. So during the 2 rounds, you're going to see this link right there on your dashboard. And it's going to say, first round is now open. Click here to access OEP. That is essentially going to take you to a separate site, which is the entry site. Now, if you have any problems logging in, password issues, or you just can't get into Grammy.com and you're a member, go ahead and email membership@recordingacademy.com and they will get back to you as soon as they are able. And here we go. We are getting close to making entries. This is what the entry website looks like. Members and media companies are going to see this once they are entered into the entry website. And I want to spend a little time talking about navigating the entry site. In my opinion, once you know the layout of the website, it's going to make your entry process very stress-free. We have resources, we have contact, we have the log out, log in button. We have a summary of your entries you can see. And of course, we have our create new submission and final submit buttons. So I'm going to jump over to that right now so you can see what that looks like. There we are. Okay. So you made it in, you're happy, you're excited to get those entries started. I want to point you to the top, this black bar up top. Dashboard. This is essentially a home button. It's going to get you to where you need to go. It's actually going to bring you to the dashboard at any point throughout the site. So if you need to get back to the dashboard, to this page, you click dashboard. Now resources, huge. This is major. So if you click this button, it's going to open up 14 different resources. It's our resource library, essentially. All of these are available to you. They are PDF documents. You can print them, save them, whatever you need to do, but you're going to want to review a lot of these before you even get started. Get familiar with our terminology, the category definitions. We have some tips, some basic tips on entering. We have a full list of our fields and categories. We have an example of what we ask for in terms of liner notes, the information we need. We have voter solicitation guidelines. We have a lot of information here. So I would recommend opening up the resources, picking a few of those and spending some time with them before you even get started. Between all of these resources you're seeing here, you should be able to make all of your entries. And of course, for those few things that just are not covered there, you can always get in contact with us at OnlineEntry@recordingacademy.com. So if I hit the dashboard, it takes me back. To the right, on the far right, you're going to see some red text. Now, this is new for anyone that's made entries before. But what this is, it's not there to scare you. It's not there to do anything except tell you how much time you have left before the deadline. So if you got started right now, you would have 15 days, 4 hours, 37 minutes before the round closes. That's what that's there for. So make sure, I don't think you can miss it, but make sure to take note of that every time you log in. And to the right here, you have a live chat and log out. That's to our developers at Gangaroo. They're the people that created the site, the company that created the site, and a log out button. Now you can log out and you can log in as many times as you want until you complete your entry process or until the deadline of 6 p.m. at the end of the round. Below that, there's some general support. If you're having website issues, this is who you want to call, grammy@gangaroo.com, or that phone number. Or if there's any awards process questions you have, email us at that OnlineEntry@grammy.com email address. Now, if you go back down right here, you're going to have another view of our timetable, just so that you do not forget that. And right here, you're going to see create new submission and final submit. Create new submission is what you're going to click on every time you do that. You create a new entry. If you have 5 entries you're making in this round, you're going to hit that 5 times. If you have 100 entries, you're going to hit that 100 times. That's how you know. You're going to be using that for every single entry. Final submit, on the other hand, it's very inviting, but you're only going to use that once. Once you know for sure you have completed all of your entries for the round, then you're going to hit final submit and go through that process. And I will show you what that looks like a little later. But for right now, create new submission is where you want to be when you're making your entries. And another new feature this year is this, the all entries summary. That is going to tell you at any point during your process, you can get an exported report that tells you in detail all of your entries and your status. So if you are making 20 entries and you're having trouble keeping track of all of your entries, feel free to export a report. It'll generate as a PDF and review that information at any time. And I think that's it. You'll see my test entries there, and we'll go into that a bit more right now. But for the time being, I want to start talking about creating entries, because that's why you all are here. And this is where it gets fun. So there's a few things that you're going to want to have ready before you even start making your entries. You're going to want basic recording information. This is the release date, UPC, ISRC numbers. You want credited record label. You want the artist name, the album title, the song title, things like that. You're also going to want the names of credited individuals on the recording. You're going to want those producers, those engineers and mixers, those mastering engineers, featured artists, songwriters, all of those important people you are definitely going to have on hand while you're making your entries. And then your files. We're going to spend some time once we get there, but you're going to be asked to upload files of label copy, liner notes, at the very least. Every category is going to ask you for credits. Some categories, like song categories, will ask you for song lyrics. And then we get into other requirements based on the category, such as recording package. If you're entering there, you're going to need to provide us with a PDF of actual photos of the package. So we're going to let you know, based on the category, exactly what you need to provide for us. But having all those files kind of ready and organized are just going to make your life that much easier. And of course, links. You're going to want to have those DSPs up to be able to copy those links, have those ready for us. So let's go back and make some entries. So for the purposes of this webinar, I created some sample entries just to help speed things along. So right here, you're going to see this. If you had already completed this entry, Taylor Swift Folklore Album of the Year. So if you're starting, you want to make that entry, you're going to hit create new submission. For purposes of this, like I said, I'm going to edit the entry, but no matter if I hit edit or if I hit create new submission, it's going to start me at the beginning of the entry process. So let's go ahead and click that. All right, here we go. First step of the entry process, of the actual entry. Package name. This is what you're going to call this specific entry. This is information we never see. Whatever you put in this field is only for you. It's for your to make things easier for you to organize whatever you need to do. But in this case, good rule of thumb is to call it the artist and the title. If you have any questions, you can hit this icon and it's going to show you, okay, this is what I should call albums, singles, videos, craft categories, or producers. So you can always reference that if you need a little help there. Now I know I want to enter this in album of the year, right? So I know I'm clicking the general field where it tells you record of the year, album of the year, song of the year. If I wanted to enter in pop album, I would click this. So whatever you click here is going to allow you those categories a little later on in the process. So for this one, general album of the year is where I want to enter. Now, scrolling down here, you're going to see some important information that you want to read. It's some of our common reasons for disqualifying entries, and a bit more information that you want to definitely look over. So for this page, I've entered that information. I am done. So scrolling to the right down, you'll see the continue button. You're going to hit that and you'll go on to the next page. So this page is going to be that basic information. Actually, it's going to be the rights. Then we get into the basic information. So the Recording Academy rights, you're going to have to agree to for every entry. I highly suggest reading them. And once you do and agree, you hit the agree checkbox, and then you hit continue. And here's where we get that basic recording information. First and foremost, I just want to kind of tell you how this is laid out. Any field where you have to input text that's required is going to have a star next to it. You'll see recording date is required, yet the one below it, the ISNI, is not, completely optional. So let's go through each one briefly. So this is an album, but here are your choices. These are your 4 choices for any entry you're making. This is an album. Recording date, give us as much information as you can. The more information, the better. I'll say that. But month and year will suffice. Here's where you're going to select artist type, solo artist, established duo group, and so on. She is a solo artist, so I select solo. I enter her name. The ISNI number is just that. It's an international standard name identifier. If you know about this and if you have that information, great, throw it in there. If you do not, keep going. It's completely optional. It's more, we're trying to collect as much data as we can. That's why that is there. Album title, there it is. Album release date, clicking on the calendar will give you a calendar field. You can select the date that way. The album UPC and ISRC to the right of that. All of these are required so far, except for the ISNI. Credited record label, distribution, where is this for sale, and then format. Now, if you've made entries with us in the past, you will know that selecting the format, there used to be the option to select physical formats like vinyl, CD, things like that. But this year, the Recording Academy is only accepting streaming links. So that's why you're going to see streaming there. Now, there's an asterisk to that. If you're making entries in certain craft categories like package, album notes, historical, you will definitely need to send us physical product. But for the vast majority of our categories this year, streaming links are what we're going to ask for. Now, if you scroll down, the last box, comments. This is an optional box. It's largely not necessary unless there are some circumstances or something really important to the entry that you need to let us know, the awards department. like it's noted, no bios, no reviews. The voters aren't going to see any of that, and it has no bearing on your entry. And I am actually going to take a quick pause there. I'm seeing a lot of questions, which is awesome. And I'm going to throw it over to Ralph and Shelley.
Can music only be submitted within the year they're released? What about previous releases? So this is a little nuanced. So I'm going to give you a very brief overview of the eligibility. If a single or track is released on its own, it could be it could be submitted that year, that eligibility period. If it is not submitted the year that it's released, but it is then released the following eligibility period on an album as a track, it can be submitted the same year. And if the year after the album has been released, that single or track has not yet been submitted, you can actually enter it as a track from the album the next year.
I have one. Can Grammy U members make submissions? No, they cannot. You have to be a professional or voting member or a registered media company to make submissions.
I have here, what is the benefit of being a media company versus a regular member? In terms of entering, there is no difference. There's no difference between being a member enterer or a media company entering. The difference is mainly just how we categorize who entered and how we reach out to you. But there is no benefit or detriment to entering as either one.
Next one, can a voting member submit his own or her work? Yes, definitely. We would expect you to. Want to get the next one, Shelley?
Yeah. Someone has asked, is it always a 13-month window, or is it just this year? It is just this year. Our calendar year changes every year for very many reasons, COVID being one of them, the date of the telecast changing. So it is not always a 13-month window. That is a special circumstance, and we do not yet have the dates for next year's eligibility period, so keep an eye out for that.
Next one I have, can an artist become a member? What's the waiting process? Yes, definitely an artist can become a member. They definitely have to meet the requirements. We only approve applications once a year though, March 1st. So the deadline to become a member for the upcoming 64th Awards is late, but you can still apply right now and then be ready and get your membership hopefully approved for the next awards, which would be the 65th. So if you're not a member right now, it's too late to be a member to submit entries. So your next best thing would be find somebody who is a member so they can make the entries for you.
All right, and I do have another question about FYC and outreach. And it is very smart to wait until the awards process has been completed right before the first ballot goes out to do any FYC, any campaigns, anything like that, because we do have a screening process and things might move categories. So you can always reach out to us and ask us where your entry has landed, if it's been moved. But we do recommend that you wait until after the entry period is closed, after all releases, after that September deadline, and after awards has finished all of their work processing.
Next one, my album releases on September 24th. Which is just before the end of our eligibility period, which is past the second round entry access dates. How do I include the streaming links in my submission since it will be live past the entry access date? There is a website that you can go to provide us your links, but you still need to make the entry within the final round.
And I think with that, Ralph, let's kick it back to Michael.
Awesome. Yes, thank you so much. I will be discussing the entry streaming update site, which is referring to giving us those September release links. We do have a separate site for that, and I will definitely explain that in a bit. And also regarding the FYC question, in the resources of this website, there is the voting solicitation, and that contains the FYC guidelines. I highly suggest giving those a good read as well. But here we go. So basic information is done. It's there. I want to hit continue. And on the next page, you're going to see all of our categories in numerical order, 1 through 86. We made it a little easier on the eyes though. So it's all in order, but it's by field. So if you want to know what the rock categories are, you're going to click the field, the actual box. It's going to expand that out, and it's going to show you our 4 rock categories. Now within that, if you want to know the definition of any category, you can click on this icon, and there's your definition. You can also print a full category definition guide from the resources, but you can also see them here. They're all the same. And if you scroll down a bit more, just to give you the full view, that's everything, all the way down to category 86, music film. So if I go back up, I know, like in this example, I want to enter an album of the year. And rightfully so, I can't select record of the year, song of the year, because of the information I filled out in the previous screen. If I were to put single in the format for the recording type in the previous screen, it would have allowed me to enter record of the year, song of the year. But because I chose album, I can only select album. And that's exactly how this site is designed. So I've chosen album of the year. I want to hit continue. And now we're going to get into a little more of the detailed information. So up top, you can see this is what you've entered so far. That should match everything you've had. And if you can always double check, but that's everything we've entered so far. Now, if you scroll down, album of the year, for this specific category, we require at least one producer, at least one engineer mixer, one mastering engineer, and one songwriter. You can see featured artist, no star, is optional. Now, if your recording, your album in this case, only has one credited producer, one engineer mixer, then you're only going to fill out the one field. But in this case, this Taylor Swift album has 3 producers. So what I did is I had to use the add another button. Let's pretend this actually has 5 producers. So I've entered 3 so far. I want to add another and add another. Hitting that will give me 5 fields for 5 different producers. If I am mistaken and I say, oh no, it's 4. So you can just X out the 1, and now you have your 4. So, and diving into these fields a bit more, only the name is required. If you have an AKA, if there is an ISNI, or if you have an email address for this credited individual, of course, the more information you can give us, the better. But only the name is required at this point. So I've entered my 3 producers. I've entered my engineer and mixers, 3 of those, and then entered a mastering engineer, but say I need two mastering engineers. So let's do test. That's 1. Now I have my 2 mastering engineers, 2 songwriters, and of course the featured artist, which is completely optional. So we'll leave that blank. And this, you can just check out, go down one more time. It all looks good. We can proceed to the next stage. Now, just to remind you that we highly suggest taking your time here. Really do take your time. There is no rush. The sooner you get started, of course, always, the better. But you definitely just really take your time here. Okay, so here we are to the upload media section. If you remember, I told you we'd spend a little more time here because there's a lot to do at this point. So we'll take it one at a time. So if you scroll down, you're going to see streaming platform, and you're going to see 5 fields. Now, the first 4 are the specific streaming services. So this field is going to look for an Amazon link. This one's going to look for Apple, Spotify, and Tidal. And then we have other. This is for the remainder of our eligible streaming services. You can click other, or you can click links, and it'll open up a resource that gives you the full listing. So in this case, I'm ready to give my album link. So I'm putting the Spotify, and let's just do the 1. Of course, if you have all 4 of these, give them to us. The more, the better here. And I will also want to recommend that you copy and paste these directly from the streaming platform, just so we know we're getting the most accurate link. Now, what happens if this album doesn't come out until September 30th, the very last day of our eligibility year, and you don't have a link yet? Because obviously you would not have a link, a live link at least, for something that's not out yet, and you can't get it to us. So for that, we're going to jump to our streaming entry update site. So if you scroll down, I'm going to delete this just to show you how it works. So right now, I can't proceed. It says provide at least one streaming platform link. What if you don't have it? So I'm going to click this right here. It says this link is not available yet, but you will submit it via our entry update site by September 30th. So this takes a little more work, but this will allow you to complete your entry without a link. And I'll show you a little more information on how this works. All right. So you have a user ID and you have an entry number. You'll get that information once you complete the process, the entry number. So September 30th rolls around, you finally have that album link. You're going to go to the streaming entry update site, and you're going to give us that information there. And I can actually show you what that looks like. Here's that page. This is the one where you're going to say, finally got it. Here it is. Here's my link. And we're good. That's what that streaming entry update site is. For now, let's jump back to the upload media section. So I'll put my Spotify link back in. And now it's asking for required media. For album of the year, we only require the liner notes or credits. For that, and what you're going to see is it's going to say assign files because you haven't uploaded anything just yet. This is how you do that. You're going to click add files to submissions, and this is where you're going to pull them from your computer to provide to us. You're going to hit select. You're going to find your credits. Taylor Swift credits. There it is. And you're going to hit upload. So right now, with the red X there, we don't have it just yet. So you have to hit the blue button right here in the middle, hit upload. And once it turns green, that means go. Green means go, you're set. Now, if you go back down, now you're ready. You're going to see it there. There it is. There's the credits. Feel free to let us know if you have any questions as you're doing this, but as long as you're taking your time, you go step by step, and you can even reference this video that we're going to make available in the coming days. You should be good there. Now, there's an optional section. This is new to the site this year. So if you have press photos, provide them to us. The more assets we get, the better off we are should this project get nominated. So for a press photo, it works a bit the same as you were uploading the liner notes. You're going to click here, accept the terms, enter your first name, last name, email, and agree. And once you do that, you make sure to give us the photo credit. And then you can go up and select the photo just like you did the credits. You can upload it that way. Now, if you don't have the press photo, of course, this is completely optional. You are able to proceed without that, and I'm going to do just that just to show you. So I have no press photo at this point, but I am going to continue. I've got my link, I've got my credits, and we are set with, we don't have a press photo. And we're almost done. So we're spending a lot of time on each stage of this process, but you'll know that on the minute you start your second entry, it is going to be that much quicker. You're just going to get into a flow of it. I promise. So the contact information, this is where we are jumping off point. Should this recording, this entry become nominated, we're going to go to this contact information to make sure that we get the proper information to these nominees. So this is where you're going to provide that. manager name, if applicable, but everything else is required. This is basic contact information, but do make sure that it is management or it is primary artist information and not so much record label contact information. So I've entered my basic contact information for Taylor, and I'm going to hit continue. This right here is a summary. This is everything you've entered. You can go through it, read it, make sure it's all there, and if all looks good, you hit complete. Now, this is very important. Every time you complete an entry, it's going to show you this message. So yes, this entry is saved, but is not submitted. Big difference there. So in order to submit your saved entries, you got to go through the final submit process from the dashboard. But right now we're good. You've saved it and you're done with Taylor Swift. That's one. You're all set there. I'm going to go through one more, but I do want to throw it back to the Q&A because we do have a lot of questions coming in. So Ralph and Shelly, what do you got for us?
Good timing. I actually have a good one. Someone has asked if we only provide one streaming link per submission, if that would penalize or harm an entry in any way. No, we do only require one streaming link per entry. However, those links will be available on the ballot for a listening function that we recently added to our live ballots. So the more links that you can provide, the better. The more links you provide, the more links that voting members will have access to. So if you provide Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Tidal, someone who only has one of those subscriptions will have better chance of easily clicking on your work to listen to what you've entered.
I have one. If you're a voting member submitting for a non-member or to help a fellow member, is there a limit to how many entries you could submit? No, there is no limit. You can make as many entries as you'd like. However, if they're artists, we do encourage them to try to become a member. Every vote counts.
I have another question about people's contact information. If you don't have everyone's contact information at the time of entering, in the entry process, that information is not required. However, at the end of the entry process, it does ask for contact information for somebody with a recording. The reason for that is in the event of a nomination, we do reach out to all nominees to give them all of the information necessary, awards, tickets, shipping information for statues, for nominee medallions. So it is very important that we do receive contact information for these nominations, or people might miss all of that information.
Next one, are you only accepting the audio part of the submission digitally, or is a mailed CD flash drive okay? We are not accepting any physical product with the exception of a few craft categories that Michael mentioned. So if it's released physically, exclusively physically, you'd have to give us the digital format somehow. Here's an, I'm getting a lot of questions about what a media company is. I'm going to post the definition of what we define a media company is. A lot of people are asking if management companies qualify or like publicist company qualifies. I will post the definition in the chat. So just be on the lookout for that.
All right, let's see. Okay. No, I think we're actually good. I will say that a lot of the questions I'm getting are regarding the press photos, and that is a new feature this year. So absolutely understandable that we have so many questions about that. Preferably, I do believe we would prefer the press photo for the art or single album art over an artist press photo. However, I do believe we're flexible about that. And if you have questions about that, of course, please feel free to reach out to us.
The next question we have is, if you're submitting an album, should you use the general in the submission? The general field is for record of the year, song of the year, album of the year, and best new artist. So general is different from the specialized genre field. So you can submit, say you have a rap album, you can submit it in rap, the album, and you can also submit the album in the general field, which is album of the year category. Next one I have, if an album features lots of artists on its tracks, but the artist whose album is a solo artist, do we put a solo or collaboration for artist type? Put a solo artist if it's a solo artist album, even though they have a lot of collaborations. If you're talking about a song, if that is a collaboration, if that solo artist submits it in a performance or song category, you then can put a collaboration and include both the solo artists as well as the featured artists.
I'm seeing a couple of questions regarding the liner notes and credits that are required. Just as a reminder, once you're in the OEP window, there's a resource tab where you can see all of the required credits for every category, all of the product requirements for every category, and what those liner notes or production booklets should look like.
One question I have is, what's the best way to share the entry? Last year, it felt like we voters had to seek a way to play the songs. When we put the ballot out, anybody who provided us a streaming link is going to have their streaming links available for voters to listen. But however, if you don't provide us streaming links, it's not, as we mentioned, it's not going to be eligible. It'll be disqualified. We definitely need those streaming links.
I will actually start talking about the final submit process. In the interest of time, I want to make sure everyone sees this. So before we hit our hour mark, we'll do a example of what the final submit process is. So say you're done, you're all set, you completely finished with your entries for this round. Then you're going to go to this button that's been very tempting to hit. It's final submit. You're going to hit OK. And once that loads, it's actually going to give you one last look of your entries just to make sure it's all there. And it's going to have you agree to a couple of questions just to make absolutely certain that we are completely done. Because as you know, once that deadline hits and once you're final submitted, there is no adding information, there is no adding entries. So you'll see here a quick list of what you've entered, and then those questions at the bottom. Now, just to jump at the craft category part of this. So yes, some craft categories require physical product. If so, you can click here as well as the resource section, but clicking here is going to give you a PDF of what we actually require. So if you entered in recording package, you're going to need to give us 5 copies. Engineered album, non-classical, 2 copies, things like that. So you can reference that here, and it's also going to be a part of your final submissions list. It's going to tell you exactly what we are looking for. So I'm all set here. 2 questions. Have you completed all your entries for this round of the entry process? Yes, I have. Are you ready to submit these recordings for processing? After you submit these entries, you will not be able to enter any additional artists or modify entries for this round. Yes. You hit those, you hit final submit, you're going to see a congratulations screen, and you're going to breathe the biggest sigh of relief you had in a long time. Congratulations, you have final submitted your entries. Now you're going to get a confirmation email also telling you this exact same thing. In this email, you're going to have the ability to print your submissions list and a packing label if necessary, if you need to send us physical product. But for purposes of this screen, you can print your submission list there, and the email is essentially receipt that we have received your entries. This is a submission list. This is what it looks like. There's a lot of text, but I will break it down for you and tell you what you really want to pay attention to. Up top, if you're submitting physical product for craft entries, these are the dates we need that product by. A little further down is the link to that streaming update site. There's a link, click it right off your PDF, and it will take you to that entry site. Some more contact information, and this is where the important information comes in. So your user ID, name, your contact email, and then finally a breakdown of your entries. As you can see in this example, I've entered in a few craft categories. I've entered in immersive audio, producer of the year, non-classical. I've also entered in the box set category, and you can tell with those. That one's asking me for 3, producer of the year, non-classical for 4, the box set package category for 5 copies. That makes sense, craft categories. Everything else that you submitted in any other category for all of your entries, where you provided links it's going to tell you pretty clear, you do not need to send us physical product. We have the link. So that's what that page is going to tell you. Like I said, you can get that from the confirmation email or print it directly from the congratulations screen. Okay, so now what? This is where you want to kind of have a checklist of things. Check for that confirmation email. And I promise you, if you don't see it, it very likely ended up in your spam folder. And if you still don't see it, we can resend it. Just email us at OnlineEntry and we can get that out to you real quick. This is your receipt that you've made entries and the Recording Academy has received them. It also serves as a packing list for those craft categories. And any physical product we do need as soon as possible. It just helps with our processing of all these entries. And the first ballot, also known as the entry list. This is everything that our awards department has verified and is eligible. This is going to be available to voting members from October 22nd through November 5th. And that's kind of where your head should be once you finish the awards, the entry process. And I do want to throw it over to Ralph and Shelly, who are doing an amazing job with all the questions coming in. What are you guys seeing now?
Okay, we're definitely trying to keep up with you guys, but if anything is missed, if you have a burning question that gets unanswered, please feel free to reach out to us after this. If your questions I'm seeing a lot of category-specific questions, to which I would say check out the resources we've posted in the chat, because our website does have detailed explanations of every single category's eligibility, as well as in the OEP process themselves. And yes, so I have a question about making separate entries for multiple categories for a single release. Yes, you will be making multiple entries depending on how many categories you're entering in, particularly if you're entering in the genre categories as well as album of the year and the craft categories.
I have a few. Let's see. If you do have a physical and won't be ready till weeks after digital submissions, when do we submit that? We're not accepting physical. So submit the file, if it's available on a DSP, give us those links. Another one is, does a song have to be a certain age to submit? Great question. We have a 5-year rule. So for most of our categories, with the exception of certain craft categories, the album or track cannot be older than 5 years old from the release date. So it has to be less than 5 years old.
I'm seeing a lot of questions about, do I have to be, or does an artist have to be signed to a record label to enter? No, absolutely not. Independent releases are entered all the time. Definitely encourage both. So if you have any questions about that, please reach out to us, but you do not need to be signed to a record label to qualify.
Next one is, what if you are an independent artist that is currently not signed to a record label? That does not matter. You don't need to be part of a record label to submit entries. We get independent artists all the time. What is the best way to get a full list of credits? We do have a format, I believe. Michael, is there a format for them to submit the credits online?
Yes. So preferred method is the label copy. Anytime the label copy is available, let us have that. If not, in the resources section, there is a template for what we're looking for, the basic recording information. That is definitely in the resources section. Yeah.
Thanks. Next one, how do we handle album submission versus song submissions as individual songs? You just submit them as separate entries. So if you have an album, submit it in an album category. Then you could pick tracks and submit them in performance and song categories. Next one, do they all have to be listed on the physical CDs, engineers, producers, etc.? Because if we only release digital, there's no place to add that kind of thing. As Michael said we prefer a label copy of credits. So we're not accepting any physical product. So if that's what you're referring to, that is not something we need.
I've seen a couple questions regarding remixes. If a song original is released in the same eligibility period as a remix or reproduction, the label or the artist entering can choose one of those to be the official track to use that year. However, if a original song is released in an eligibility period before the remix, that remix then would only be eligible in the remix category. You could not enter that in any other category.
Next one, do we do a new submission for each category if the material is the same? For example, if we want to submit multiple categories, yes, you need to do a separate entry for each category you want to submit in. You cannot duplicate an entry and submit that one time and spread it across.
We have a lot of questions regarding media registration. Your media registration window is still open. That runs for quite a while, so you do have time. If you have any issues again on there, you can reach out to us regarding whether or not you qualify, or if you have any technical issues in registering.
Next one is, what's the difference between a track and a single? A track is part of an album. A single has a standalone EPC, ISRC. So a single is just a standalone release, whereas a track is actually part of an album.
And we've answered this one in the chat, but I just want to say it in case anyone else is having issues. If you have any issues with your membership, issues renewing your membership, any glitches on the site, please reach out to our membership team. That email will be provided on our resources, but definitely reach out so you can make sure that you're all up to date so you can submit.
And I just want to reiterate with the recording dates. I got several questions about people being concerned that it wasn't recorded within the eligibility year. As I said before, it can't be older than 5 years old from the release date. So if you recorded it 4 years but released it within this current eligibility period, it is eligible.
They've answered a lot of great questions. We know there's a lot more. Please reach out to us at OnlineEntry@grammy.com and give us those questions, and we'll make sure to get back to you as soon as we can. In terms of this presentation, this actual slideshow will be available to you. It will be in the follow-up email. And the actual video of this is going to be available very, very soon. We will be posting that to our YouTube, Recording Academy YouTube channel, and we will make you all aware once that is available. Now, just because it's my own nature, one more list to go down to really drive it home, guys. So log into Grammy.com, media company or member, Grammy.com is where you start. Make your entries a few at a time or all at once. Hit the final submit button by 6 p.m. Pacific time. Anytime you see a time reference, remember it's Pacific time. Check your email for that confirmation. That's your receipt. That's the proof. If you don't see it, let us know. We'll send it back. And then required physical product for those certain craft categories, send that in as soon as you can. Any other questions? OnlineEntry at recordingacademy.com. Give us a call there, 877-637-6816. And Grammy101.com is also a great resource that talks about our process. Ralph and Shelly have been putting links to other resources that you can access now, and that would be your best starting point. So that's where we're at. I really do appreciate all of you being with us today. I highly suggest just taking your time. That is the single biggest piece of advice I can give you, is start early, take your time. It's going to make this process enjoyable, and it should be. You're entering into the Grammy Awards. This should be a very enjoyable process for you. And yeah, let us know. Really let us know if you have any questions. Our team will get back to you. And with that, I want to thank Ralph and Shelly. Where are you at? Yes, they did an awesome job. And thank you so much for being with us today. And good luck making those entries, and welcome to the 64th Grammy Awards season.
Michael,
Yes.
one question. This
Yes.
is something that I think is important as people make their entries. If they're an independent artist, I forgot where we're at with this, so I'm going to drop with this. What do they put in the label if there is no label attached to them?
They could put independent.
They could put independent. Okay, just wanted to make sure. So got that, everybody who answered that question. There was several people that asked that question. So just put independent in the label field.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much, Ralph and Shelley. Thank you all for tuning in, and let us know if you have any questions.